The Devil All the Time is a 2020 crime drama directed by Antonio Campos, starring Tom Holland, Robert Pattinson, Bill Skarsgård, and Jason Clarke. I went into this film almost completely blind, only knowing that Spider-Man and the upcoming Batman are in it, and it's a weird film, It's a bit difficult to describe the story. You can almost summarize it as a collection of loosely connected characters doing horrible things to each other. Almost everyone in this film is batshit psycho, and the movie has a kind of spider's web of a story, following seemingly unrelated multiple characters in multiple timelines whose paths cross with each other. To summarize the plot very briefly, there's one troubled young man called Arvin, played by Tom Holland, who's trying to do right by his stepsister and grandmother, and he's surrounded by sinister folk and hidden psychopaths. He's had a very unsettling upbringing, which is covered around the first 45 minutes of the film or so. There's loads of other characters, like a dude and his gal going around the country picking up hitchhikers and doing a weird photo shoot where the husband takes snaps of the hitchhiker banging his wife, before they brutally murder the poor young dude, and rinse and repeat. The movie has a very bleak atmosphere. It's very dark, dry, and pretty violent. I'd probably describe it as a Quentin Tarantino movie, but much more nihilistic and without the humour or colourful dialogue. Or maybe a Coen Brothers movie, again without the humour. The movies from those directors often have a kind of ironic, dark humour as an undercurrent to the film. This one doesn't. There is not really any room for lightness to take comfort in. It just moves from depravity to depravity. It's set in rural Ohio and West Virginia, and many of the characters are sturdy, church-going folk, and much of the crazy actions that occur in the film stem from the characters' strange relationships with their religion. Like one preacher who becomes disillusional and feels he's been given special powers by God, and he kills his wife, thinking that he'll be able to resurrect her, and when of course he's unable to, he's left with some mortifying egg on his face. In addition to these characters who exhibit what we might call Christian fanaticism, there are solid and sincere followers of the church who are often the victims of the more horrific acts in the film. Other characters whose faiths are shaken by traumatic events in the film, and one particularly creepy preacher played by Robert Pattinson who pretty much just uses his position to get sexual favours from his followers, gaslighting and grooming young girls into doing things with him. Pattinson was excellent in his small role. He's really been impressing me with exceptional performances wherever he pops up, like in The Lighthouse or Waiting for the Barbarians. In fact, the acting all round from the cast was brilliant. Skarsgård gives a notable performance, and the movie will prove to people that Tom Holland has a lot to offer outside of mainstream Marvel superhero stuff. The technical elements of the film were all on point. The sets, costume design, cars, all of that kind of stuff really sold the time period. And it was interesting that the movie didn't have that kind of cheap, glossy look that a lot of Netflix originals have. In fact, I noticed quite a bit of film grain, and was surprised to learn that the movie was actually shot on 35mm film, which definitely helped to sell the period feel. The movie is narrated by the author of the book the movie is based on, and I could have done without this, to be honest. I felt the narration served little purpose. The narrator was really just explaining the obvious, describing what's going on, or explaining why certain things happened, which was so obvious anyway that it felt a bit insulting, like the film thought I was a bloody idiot. This is one of the more grating things about the film. Like, for example, there's one part where a character tries to shoot another, but the gun doesn't do anything, and the film cuts to a flashback of someone taking the bullets out. That's effective enough on its own, but the narrator has the need to tell us her bullets were taken out. There's loads of instances like this in the film, where it seems they want to read us the book instead of showing us the movie. The movie is a bit difficult to pin down. I mean, I did enjoy it, but I get the feeling that I wanted to like it more than I did. I'm trying to think of these violent ensemble pieces like Pulp Fiction and why those movies work, and yet something about The Devil All the Time doesn't quite click. Something about it makes me think, after 2.5 hours when it's over, okay, that was interesting, but what was it actually about? What was it trying to tell me? I think one of the issues is that the movie lacks a central theme to tie all the characters and plots together, and if it does have one, I missed it. Either that, or it lacks a central narrative, or even a narrative that has any kind of focus at all. Somehow I wasn't as affected by the murder, violence, and psychopathic behaviour depicted in the film as I wanted to be. I feel like the director had a vision that he wanted to put on film, but kind of got lost in the woods while making it, and the final product, while sprawling, well-made and brilliantly acted, kind of just rambles on. I get the sense that he wanted to tackle the nature of violence, Christian fanaticism, generational trauma and other things, but aside from displaying them on the windowsill for us to see, he doesn't do much with it. We're never allowed into the shop to get up close and personal. I feel like there's two potential great adaptations here. One, a TV season, long, epic, more characters, more backstory and more subtext and explorations of the psyches of the various characters. Either that, or a tight 90-minute long look at Tom Holland's character and life, cutting out all the fat. Because there is a lot in the film that makes you think, what was the point? Like the two characters going around killing hitchhikers. You could have made a whole movie on them, something like Natural Born Killers, exploring why they do what they do, which is actually explained in the book from what I hear. But in the film, they seem to serve little purpose aside from trying to kill the main character when he requests a ride. We didn't need to see them in the film for half an hour just for that. And if the point instead with these two was the journey and not the destination, again it feels pointless because the atmosphere is so bleak and unenjoyable, there's no fun to be had in their storyline. The more I think about this film, what with the excellent technical elements, but the failure for the film to really have a zing about it. I mean, I'm not familiar with the director's other works, but I get the idea he might be the problem. And the movie would have been a lot better in more suited hands. Tarantino, for example, could have done something really special with this story, and I'm not even really a big fan of his. The Devil All the Time is a well-acted and bleak drama, one that I found more interesting than entertaining, but ultimately I was not moved by it, and the meandering pace did leave me checking how long was left a few times. I give the film a 6 out of 10.